day, good evening, depending where you are in the world. Welcome to Research Radio Live. I am Joe Kiernan. Happy holidays to all who celebrate. Tonight, we're just going to have a general discussion program, which I haven't done in a while, but I'm glad to do it. Joined by good friends of ours, AmadPainter, Mark Eddy, both hosting shows Monday evening, Studio A, 10 p.m. Tim C's here with us. And the second hour, it looks like we're going to have Dr. Richard Allen Miller join with us. And I hope everyone had a good day today. How are you guys doing?
Oh, fine. I'm eating my chocolate bunny.
Nice. My kids, they got all the chocolate. I got the mess. That's what I got. I got the off-brand chocolate. I got the ones not made by major companies.
You went to the dollar store.
Well,
GMO stuff.
They're always the ones laying around in handfuls.
It's brown, right?
Yeah. So those really terrible chocolate coins. You know, these things. So you only see them on Easter. I think they stopped making them 20 years ago. There's just a big surplus of these chocolate.
They melt a little faster when you leave them in the sun.
They're resilient, though. You know, they're all right. They don't melt so quick. I have to chew them pretty good. They're like cardboardy.
You're supposed to take the wrapper off first, Joe.
Does have a metallic
foil caught in your teeth.
Before the show, Mark, I meant to squeeze in before the show. You and I seem to have a real joy talking to you about Giordano Bruno. But I know when we last talked, we talked about we were speaking pretty much about that and Paradise Lost, and I don't even think I had known, or I had completely overlooked it when I learned it years ago, that Giordano Bruno is the character of the Nolan in the story was based on Bruno.
Is that so?
Yeah, and I didn't even know that. And the other fact I picked up that was really burning me up, I couldn't wait to tell you, was that, remember we had mentioned that when Bruno, he arrived in London, and that was the first year Shakespeare plays were also began to be written.
Yeah, I remember that from about 3 Thursdays ago.
Right, yeah. And I also found out, the only other cool thing I found out relating to that was the first printing of the Shakespeare plays and the first performance were all done the same time he was initially arrested and held. So it's just very, very coincidental. But, the nerd in me was burning me up to tell you. Well, I agree with you. I agree. It's just the word fills such a long explanation.
Well, synchronicity,
No, that is a good one. That is.
I don't know much about the Shakespeare plays. That's why Mark brought that show to you, because I just ain't up on it. I know that the most famous one there was a love tragedy.
Yeah. Well, it's like what it boils down to is it really was someone different who wrote the plays than what's been told. And it's really like a big puzzle. There's a few people have really good theories.
Oh, I'd have a ghostwriter too if I could afford it.
And
It's more fun when you do it by yourself.
Well, someone was pretty crafty, because it's they were works of art in their time. It's not like although the talk is obviously different of the period. But, it was very different than what everyone else was writing. It was just, whoever it was very different. But even the first printings, the books themselves were full of lots of codes. There's quite a few people that claim to have pulled out some pretty good codes out of those books.
So,
and I wouldn't doubt it.
What's the conclusion of that host? Because I didn't get to finish listening to that show that night. Was it multiple authors, or was it?
It was
particular.
It was one author, the 17th Earl of Oxford,
Right.
and Shakespeare was an actor in the company who what became like the public persona of the plays, but he was not the actual author. And there's no documentation that shows that Shakespeare wrote the plays. There's, we call it like receipts, pay stubs and things like that for being in the acting company, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the author.
Kind of like to tell you with that song, Which One's Pink? Oh, you didn't get that.
Right. A little bit like that.
Pink Floyd have a cigar. The guy asked him, which one's pink?
Yep.
Oh, which one's pink? Yeah.
And
Oh, by the way, which one's
Floyd,
pink?
it's just the name.
Yeah, it's two.
Computers acting.
I can always ask Catherine if she
Yeah.
knows of any connection with Bruno.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know.
But when we were talking about that a few weeks ago, I read in the Master game that he had met with Queen Elizabeth. So he was there in the court about this, and at the same time that Edward de Vere, the supposed author of the Shakespeare plays, would have been at the court too.
There we go. We're back. I thought my joke was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad. Kick us off the air.
Did we lose the server for a moment at all?
Oh, yeah. We were down for about 30 seconds there.
No kidding. We have, I don't know what end that's coming from, but I'm having a serious windstorm here right now. Pretty bad out there.
Patrick is trying to call in, I think.
Okay, Patrick, for people in the chat room, I dropped the internet, so I'm not slowing this down. I didn't know what was causing that. The call-in number I have for you to call in, anyone in the chat or at home, 843 is the area code, 843-491-6077, 843-491-6077. So, Tim, if
you also have the Studio B number is forwarded to you, which is 347-68. Oh, oops, take that back. 310-421-4053. I'm
Tim,
just finding out.
if you could post it in the chat, Tim, I'd appreciate it. I just dropped it just to, I didn't want to have any extra lag going on right now.
Right on.
Yeah, Mark, I'd be really interested to hear what she had to say about that, because it's, just from on my end, the things I've been into, he's an interesting guy because, the people he associated himself with, he would have been around the Medici's books and things like that, and these were the people that were holding plays and opera. This is when opera started, and all of these performances and Shakespeare's plays were, mostly originally in Venice and Florence, which is strange for a local Englishman to write about.
Yeah, and we do know that De Vere made the grand tour. Catherine covered that. Went to Paris and Italy, and if you remember, towards the end of the show, we did get into a painting. I think it was was it on a ceiling in a palazzo in Genoa that looked very similar to the depiction of a scene from which one? It was one of the longer poems. I forget which one. But
Right.
how would, if Shakespeare would have, Shakespeare never left England, how would he be aware of this painting? And the poem was written after seeing the painting, so there's some more evidence that maybe Bruno and De Vere could have met. Both are dealing with prominent Italian families,
Right.
so.
It's always so strange that a regular guy, Englishman of the time, would have such knowledge of Caesars from the ancient days when there really were not history books on the topic. A lot of the history we have for some of these Caesars are from the Shakespeare texts. So it's just it was impressive writings, even on a history standpoint. Someone knew quite a bit.
Yeah, and probably, influential people are, going around in the same, social circles in, late 16th century London. I mean, you're not going to have a commoner mixing with dukes and earls and distinguished foreign travelers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're not. So, there we are back to your theory of.
Well, I know Bruno was working in Queen Elizabeth's court, helping with language studies and translations, because he was pretty good in over 6 or so. And then that's when Shakespeare plays were being penned. The first one was written the first year he arrived there, and when he went back to Venice, from London to Venice, he was going back there to accept a contract to teach a noble guy's children. And when he got there, the noblemen locked him up and held him till the Inquisition came up, and that's when Shakespeare started being printed and sold and performed. But guys, I'm sorry to keep everyone waiting. I got a caller here. Area code 337. Are you there with us?
Joe, hi. How you doing? This is Patrick.
Patrik Anglish?
Yes.
What's up, man? How are you?
Oh, not much. I'm just enjoying listening to your conversation. And hello to Mark and to Thomas. Hope you had a good
Patrick.
Easter.
Patrick,
Good to talk to y'all.
always good conversations in the chat room, man. I always like seeing you in there.
Well, thank you.
Oh, me and Patrick's had some awesome conversations on air.
Yeah, folks at home, you got to get into the chat room on the website. A lot of good people, good conversations. I say it every week. You really need to be out there. So, Patrick, what's happening, man? Tell us what's going on in the world these days.
Oh, not much. I feel like a monk often. I just pretty much keep to myself these days.
Well, it might be the safe thing.
Yeah, one of the reasons, perhaps. With respect to Giordano Bruno, I feel a curious connection to him because my last name is Brown. And that's the same as Bruno.
That's right.
It's common to, it's pan-European, actually, and it's actually a Scandinavian Nordic name. Bruno was one of the many names that Odin would use, one of his many aliases. Interestingly enough, I got this book. I have a number of books on Nordic literature and language, etc. And with respect to Shakespeare, there's one thing that's always kind of interested me is this curious surfeit, not to say absence, of the surname Shakespeare to be found among people in England. I may have seen it once.
I agree. I agree.
You talking about like in lineage lines?
Well, just as someone's last name. I've just never seen anybody whose last name was Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And I'm not to say it doesn't exist, but it's awfully rare.
Right.
And that raises
definitely
flags
a pen
for me.
name. No doubt
I
about
think
it.
in the future they're going to look back and say, who's M. Shyamalan? M. Night Shyamalan?
M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, he's a filmmaker. But that's like a Middle Eastern name, or he's Kurdish or something like that, Lebanese maybe.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a pen name, and it's quite interesting though, because to have it coming out of, even at the time, was known to be coming out of the Queen's court, and to have performances. It was. But I sometimes I do support the people who suggest it was propaganda, often involving other royal families at the time. A lot of commoners might not know it, but other royal families at the time would recognize what was actually being said. And I'm going on other researchers here, not my own word.
Patrick, if you remember listening to the Shakespeare show on Researchers on a Mission back in mid-January, Catherine made it very clear that a hyphenated name was characteristic of a pen name at that time. So that's why you don't find Shakespeare's descendants using that name. There was no name like that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know who Shake was and how big his spear really was.
Likely it's a nom de plume, but what's
Enough
always
with the fancy talk. Show it to me.
I'm no Shakespeare scholar, but there are many timeless pieces of wisdom given out in his works that, excuse me, that lead you to think, because I've been a student of occult science and the ancient wisdom all my life, pretty much. And just a great amount of things that he said that just kind of floor you makes me think that there were some real occultists at work here. And I mean in a good way, too, when I use the word.
Well,
if you just mean hidden,
yeah,
he,
that's all.
Yeah, his identity was hidden, but he hinted at it in the sonnets, mainly like Sonnet 125 is a big clue.
Wherein what is said?
Sonnet 125 is the one that starts off, if it were anything to me to bear the canopy. That was actually a job title, carrying the canopy over the Queen in some kind of procession. A commoner like, this country bumpkin character from Stratford would have never carried a little tent over the Queen during a procession.
You're right. You're quite right.
Oh, wait, let me get the book. I'll actually come up with some more.
And there are some other things he said that I've just always delighted in, like thoughts are but dreams till their effects be tried. And that's from one of his sonnets.
well said, Patrick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool if you think about it.
The only thing I can quote by Shakespeare, I think, is poor Eric, for I knew him well.
Okay. Light doth light. Oh, I gotta think about it again before it comes to me. But it's truly profound.
I've even said et tu, Brute at least 50 times in my life and meant it. How many times it stabbed in your back over the time.
Well, were you cussing at me?
Well, you don't even have to be a poet to appreciate Shakespeare's sonnets. They're very difficult to understand, but I'm sure they're just riddled with messages and codes. And
That's why I never read them in high school. I couldn't get by the wording of them.
Yeah, it came to me now. It's light seeking light, doth light of light beguile, So ere you find where light and darkness lies, your light grows dim from losing of your eyes.
I don't know how a commoner from England was producing this level of work, especially since he was really a nobody in his own time.
Yeah, nor I.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, hey, Patrik, here's a line from Sonnet 170, or Sonnet 76. That every word doth almost tell my name. That's like some hidden information there, or it's expressing his hidden identity. To be a little bit more clear about that.
Yeah, right. I'm a sucker for Elizabethan English. The Masonic rites are carried out in Elizabethan English and the York Rite, and they're just gorgeous. And so I've had a bit of experience with them, as well as church language in the Anglican Church when I go.
Patrik, have you been to England?
No, I've been to Ireland, but I should have gone off the plane at Gatwick and stayed in England now when I think of it in retrospect.
What did you do in Ireland?
Well, I just kind of piddled around for a couple of weeks out in the West mostly. I went there to find the paranormal experiences, and I found some.
where did you go? In the castles along the shore?
Well, no, not so much that, but just being in the West, I was in Clare and up into Galway and then into Mayo. And I had a very curious experience in a bar in Mayo in a little town called Kiltimagh. And I was sitting at the bar, and in Ireland, they upend the whiskey bottles into these holders, wherefrom they can milk a shot. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Well, I was sitting there, and I wasn't paying much attention to it, because why would I have been? But there was this huge crash, and one of the bottles had jumped out of its holder, about 5 feet over, and hit the floor and broke, and there was whiskey and broken glass all over the floor. And the bartender just shrugged his shoulders and mentioned, "Oh, that's just the poltergeist." And
Sounds more like a tragedy to me.
He must have been used to it if he wasn't crying.
But it was very cool because I felt like, hey, I'm being welcomed here because this is just exactly why I came.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of history. A lot of history, Ted, with that area.
Patrik, did you make it to Glencastle?
No, I can't say. In fact, Mark, the only castle I visited was at the Rock of Cashel.
Oh, okay. How did you like the Rock of Cashel?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. When that thing heaves into view, when you come around the corner and it's right in front of you, it just smacks you in the face. It's huge. It's majestic. And even though it's the ruination is taking its toll, it's just truly an amazing place to walk through. In fact, some of the wall carvings, the bas-reliefs on the walls, actually looked Egyptian. Now, perhaps this was my mind at work. I don't know, but they certainly had an Egyptian look to them. And the round tower there is still fairly intact too.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like the Galway area? Did you spend much time in Galway?
I was in Galway City, and it's
a good old
bustling
town.
little Yeah, Salt Hill. I was there for a couple of days. Excuse me, please. And then I got in my car, and I rental car, and I drove out to Clifton, which is out toward the coast, and saw the mountains, the 12 bends, and all that. And it's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, it's
land.
beautiful country out there.
And even though you speak English, you better listen closely when those people talk, because the English they speak is heavily accented. And it's not your typical theater Irish accent that you hear either. It's, what did he just say?
Right.
Sort of thing. but it was a great time.
Patrik, what did you think of the different colors of greens in the pastures and in the fields?
Well, there were a number of them. I can't say it was a rainbow of greens that I particularly noticed, but it's a fairly green place. The nicest thing was just getting out into the west, which is where I wanted to be, because that's where the Gaelic culture still holds. And once you see the little walls, the stone walls in the fields, and the land starts getting barren, so you can see the green pastures, well, that's really something. It's the vibe. The vibe is very thick, and it's just very intense, not tense, but intense. And it's you have to experience it. It's a wonderful place. Though I'm not particularly Irish at all. That's why I changed my handle from Patty to Patrik, because I didn't want people thinking I was Irish when I'm mostly English. But still, I just love the place, and I play the music a whole lot.
I thought you were Irish by the name
No,
Patrick.
no.
I assume that with the name. Forgive me, it's my
That's
brother's
quite
name.
all right, Joe. Quite all right. No, that's just what I got named. I'm about 3/4 English and 1/4 French. I got some Scottish, a little Gaelic there, but I'm Celtic English.
Well, somewhere in the mix, it's all the same.
Yes,
we go back far enough.
Yeah, that's why I said I wish I'd stayed in England, because I don't want to go out into Dorset and Wiltshire and Somerset and places like that where Thomas Hardy. If you've ever read any of his books,
Yeah,
he was a great writer. I love his stuff.
yeah. The days of the good writers are really falling apart. There's really,
You're right there. No pun.
yeah. It's not like it used to be. A lot has changed, unfortunately.
Yeah,
A lot of the great thinkers are busy doing other things, I assume.
Yeah, Patrik, have you read Hardy's The Convergence of the Twain?
No, I have not.
That's one of just a kind of a short poem on the sinking of the Titanic, and
Interesting.
always like that line about describing when the ship hits the iceberg and something about now. It starts out. The line starts with now. I can look it up, and if someone starts talking, I can run over to my library and get the book. It's a really interesting line, and there is. If you go back to Dorset, there's his cottage.
Yeah.
That could be visited. His, I think it's his last home, is an apartment building. It's not available for people just to, walk up and it's people's homes. But I guess you can take photos out, from the street. But that is still there, and his grave is they're in a small cemetery. So there's a lot of things that if you go back, you can just get a feel for what his life was like.
Uh-huh. And just the area. I know he was a fiddler. He grew up playing fiddle. And I have a book of some of his family's fiddle tunes. It's a nice collection. And that's one of the things that drew me to start reading him. Oh, yeah. He's cool.
I was losing you for a second there, Patrik.
Yeah, he's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. You hear me okay now?
I do hear you okay right now.
Okay, I think it's this line on this phone.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry, man.
it's no worries. I wish I also had the chat room. I know Painter and Tim are watching it.
You don't want to hear how bad they're talking about you.
Yeah, no, I can't see.
I do.
The
I like
computer's
fire
across
back.
the room.
They're actually talking about King Solomon, believe it or not.
Right.
Oh, yeah?
I'm
Oh,
really
Pat,
what brought that up, but they are.
We were
And flabby
going
tattoos.
to discuss all the secrets of the universe and the meanings of life, but I thought no one really cared about hearing that sort of thing. So I thought we'd talk about the Kardashians or something.
It all boils down to bacon.
Hey,
Flies out.
Hey, Patrick, while you were talking, I ran over to my library and got my book of Hardy's, a collection of some of Hardy's poetry. The
Yeah,
line I
what
was
is
talking
that
about,
line?
it's about line 31, 32, and 33 of Convergence of the Twain. It's only a 33-line poem. But it says, till the spinner of the years said now, and each one hears, and consummation comes and jars two hemispheres. That's his poetic description of the Titanic crashing into the iceberg. Always like
Right,
that.
right.
Now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, God says now, and brings two hemispheres together, like morning, in England and America.
And perhaps in other ways, too, depending upon
Yes.
the forces at work. I've always held that the Titanic was actually the Olympic with the Titanic painted on it after I read that rather convincing account.
Yeah,
Why
I
that
believe
is.
it was a swap deal too.
But nonetheless, what happened happened.
I have to quickly say hello to Vobear. I know Vobear's in the chat room.
Hi, Bobear.
Hi, Vobear. I feel so lonely without my chat room. I was so prepared. I had my chat room open hours ago. And but I really think this storm is just playing a big factor on my service. I wish I knew someone in the business around here, Painter. Yeah.
It,
Here in Western
It don't help me
Canada,
none.
Joe, it could be NSA wasn't too pleased with your programming for tonight.
Do you have internet through Verizon?
Yes.
Oh, do you?
You
Yeah.
have FiOS and you're still having these issues?
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said,
My
we
son
had a.
works right there for Verizon. Believe
Well,
it or
I
not.
didn't want to say it on air, you know. But I might have the hotline number. But around here, as I've mentioned on the show before, here in South Carolina, at least near the coast, we really don't have any elevation on altitude. We're really only like 6 to 10 feet above sea level, no matter where you are. And
The moisture levels.
yeah, it's moisture, and it's a benefit most of the year that all the cable wires, electric phone, etc. They're all underground. We have very few telephone poles, but problem is with lots of water, it's once things get flooded and short out, it's no easy fix. So and
My
unfortunately,
internet comes from the toilet.
we're saturated here. We've had a really great deal of rain lately. Painter, you probably got some too.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
right
had
on the
3
coast.
days of rain.
Whew, man, we had some serious rain, and I didn't even know we were supposed to get as much as we did. At times, it was pretty extreme, pretty cool. I didn't need to wash my car; it was like pressure washing job.
Well, see, I've noticed that here in this area, our lightning strikes have gone way down.
No
We
kidding.
normally get hundreds of them in this time of year and the month before. That's what I mean. Usually it's thunderstorms. It's not just rain. It's out and out 100 shots of lightning in an hour.
Yeah. It's
And that's
usually
not
the
been happening.
electric storm.
Dry lightning, they call that.
Well, it's interesting you noticed that. It must be a big difference.
I've been here 30 years. So I've noticed. And one year I lost 7 computers to lightning.
Ouch.
Wow.
Wow.
Just like it was insured.
Knock on wood.
Was that all from one day, one storm?
No. Over a year period.
That's incredible.
And
Try a
it
surge
turned out to
protector?
be Yeah, oh yeah, I tried everything. I ended up sinking a 20-foot grounding rod and grounding my computer straight to it.
That's some serious
Another thing-
lightning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And we haven't had a lightning strike that I know of, maybe one or two.
I'm going to be honest
It's
with you,
just
Painter.
unusual.
I know I'm one state over from you, but I don't think I've had a storm with any lightning in it for months. You know?
Well, you're close to 400 or 500 miles away from me.
Yeah, I might be.
We're
we're
right
on-
in the
we're on
middle of
opposite
Georgia,
sides of
right
the
on
state,
Florida
right?
line. So, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, I'm on the North Carolina line.
It's
We're
at least
opposite.
a couple of 100 miles, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but you get it pretty bad because a lot of your storms cross from the Gulf over to the Atlantic.
Right, it comes up out of the Gulf and it just
Yeah, you're right in that little neck there. That's pretty serious storms you get.
And we just haven't gotten the rain and the storms like we used to.
Yeah, I
We
know.
haven't either.
You get some serious lightning storms, come to think of it. I know I always see them, and I pray they don't come up the coast.
I'm down in Bayou country in South Louisiana. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Patrick gets the one side of it before it gets to
Oh,
us.
Patrick, you
Yeah,
must get them good down there, man.
Sometimes, but I was going to say that this year it has not been the same as normal. No, we've had less, actually.
Have you seen much this
There's
year?
a way of tracking that and see if that has actually dropped off. And
Perhaps. I mean, but you just kind of notice it, from year to year. And it wasn't a real windy March, and April hadn't been very rainy, and it's just been cold.
now, Nighthawk had said a while back that he thought the weather pattern had shifted 90 miles north and slightly to the east.
Is that right?
Now, that might be something interesting to follow.
He said he could grow pecan trees now.
Hey guys,
That was his assumption.
we got an early surprise. We have Dr. Richard Allen Miller is going to be joining us. We thought at 9, but we're going to see if we can bring him in right now.
Would you like me to exit so that you can have your guest and not be bothered by me because I can listen offline?
You're not going to bother him. He's going to
It'll be all right,
he's going to
Patrick.
run the show.
All right,
You
all right.
watch. He's awesome. You know that.
Yeah,
Patrick.
I know him by listening to him. I listen to him a lot. That's great.
Ask him a question.
Yeah,
I
you
might.
should stay with us.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see here. We get him. See if we got him here.
Hi
There
there.
he is. How you doing?
Dr. Miller, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm Rick. You can call me Rick.
All right, Rick. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining us. We're very happy to have you.
How are you doing this evening?
How am I doing? I just got back from Salem, and I had radio tonight with James Arthur Jancic in Chicago, and he wanted me for 2 hours, but I broke away with an hour and a half.
Well, I'm glad you snuck away early.
What's that?
I'm glad you snuck away early.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm an early to better. Hold 1 second.
No problem.
Just put me on mute.
Sound like a busy guy. Be my guest.
Hi. Hold-
Yeah, he is a pretty busy guy, but he brings some awesome information. And Joe, you told me earlier that you'd spent some time recently. What do you call it? Translating some magic books, didn't you?
Yeah. I've been going at it for the last few weeks on Giordano Bruno, and he fits into a lot of the stuff I've been working on. And it was he had written three solid books, primarily just focused on magic, like applying alchemy to your body, transmutation of everything for, its true purpose per se in their words. And
You translated and is that the video that you?
yeah,
I
I just finished.
That's pretty awesome.
Thanks a lot, Painter.
Y'all need to go check it out, but you need to do it with a clear mind because it's pretty intense. You got to keep up.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well,
Yes, please.
were you translating original manuscripts out of the Italian or something?
Yeah, it's from Italian, from the this one that Painter was talking about, I just finished, was Bruno's the 1585 of Magic, and I put it into in audio format with a lot of pictures of the statues of him, paintings, images associated to his works and his ideas, and I put it all into a video and threw it up onto YouTube just earlier today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, great.
I haven't finished watching it yet because I didn't know about it until just, a little while ago.
Are you familiar with the Warburg University, the Warburg?
I just posted it, Rick, in the chat below. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay, I see that. Yeah, I've got that. I'll check that link out.
And
Are you familiar with the Warburg?
Yes. Yes.
And Giordano Bruno had some manuscripts there also. I saw them. And you might, at some point, get a pass in. There's others in there, the Comte Saint-Germain, the original, and other things that are in their stacks down in the vaults down below. That's what I used to do, is go in with cameras.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, they don't show them to the public. The Stella revealing Aleister Crowley is in the Seattle Art Museum in the vaults. The actual original Stella.
I'm still hoping to somehow. I know the Vatican archive is digitalizing and archiving online all their codexes and what have you, and but there's no. They're just numbered documents per se. You need to know what you're looking for. Nothing's titled and
cipher.
And I'm really hoping to come across the transcripts from Bruno's Inquisition hearings, but there's so far 50,000 of these documents put on.
Rick Strassman has written a book on the witch burnings in France in the 17th century, and through that he traces all the witch burnings in France to ergot poisoning. And it's interesting when these psychedelics and so on, when they integrated into a society, how the intellectual nerve, the moves like Freedom Radio, which you guys are doing, it spreads out in modern myths and develops into what we call grimoires.
Yeah. What about the devils of Loudun?
The devils of Loudun. The devils never existed except after Christ.
I was just wondering if that was the case of ergot or not.
Oh, yeah.
Ergot.
The reason I'm mentioning this is that the Vatican published a book called The Sacred Traditions of the Yazidi. And this was a pre-Christian devil-worshipping cult that talked about an artifact that you guys now know of as the Stargate. It was up in Iraq, down in the catacombs. We knew about it in the 70s, but I never saw it. We didn't know where it was. The Yazidis also suggest that there's a second artifact, probably in the Indian Ocean somewhere.
Could you spell that word, please?
I'm sorry?
Could you spell that word, please?
Yazidis, why Yazidis? It's a rare cult. It's called Devil Worship, or The Sacred Tradition of the Yazidis by Joseph Isaiah. It's online on Amazon. You can buy it. It is from 1919, and that's where the original knowledge base came for looking for an artifact. That's how the Nazis did it. That's how we did it, going into old texts that would suggest the possibility of technology or something like that. And there was this door that they talked about in the Yazidis where demons came and went. And the problem is the Yazidi was like a devil-worshipping cult, was pre-Christian. And that was our first warning that there might be something important going on here. Because the devil didn't exist until after Christ. The Catholic Church.
That's right. That's absolutely right. It was a much later story, and it's. But I don't want to get into it on Easter.
Well, I love Flip Wilson, though.
I don't say I don't want to. I would love to. But I already offended enough people today by saying Happy Ishtar Day all
if
day.
you're doing your true will, according to Crowley, none will say nay. And so what you're looking for is to be that Buddha where the mountain comes to you. In other words, it's supposed to be effortless and a moment of joy. And once you hit that spot, that's what Giordano Bruno is talking about in his manuscripts, that point of purpose. You're remembering where you left off and picking up where you left off, and that was the alchemical processes. I've written about it in a more contemporary form, trying to use modern words, Jungian psychotherapy, but it's all the same. It's about taking responsibility for your own evolution. It isn't like the rapture is going to come and get you. And the bad news is, at some level of hologram, you and I are the same person. They call that the numinous or collective unconscious. And that means I don't get to get out of here until you get your shit together.
He's a big unsung hero in history.
Not fair.
He was advanced.
Here's the bad news. Here's the bad news. If you decide to be a slouch and not get on your purpose and choose to come back, think of the world you get to come back to. That's why I want to get out of here. I don't really want to go into
That's
the
why I
future.
always say when I go, I'm not coming back.
I know. Why would anyone with a right mind want to reincarnate back and get it right? It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm hoping to, in the next week or so, do the same thing with the film I just put earlier that Painter had mentioned of Bruno's text on the memory. I'm pretty fascinated with his descriptions. I know it's based on a lot of modern day teachings of psychology, but I was more impressed with obviously the year in which he was doing this, but so much so he was doing this as a monk, and he impressed so many people right up the line through the cardinals, and got an invitation to go and perform how he mastered his arts of memory for the Pope. And
that was right during the same period that John Dee and Edward Kelly were doing their action with spirits.
You're darn right. You're darn right. And
just to keep everything in proper perspective there.
007.
Rick, before you weren't even, when we began the show, Mark and I had discussed Bruno at length several times.
Okay.
And it's coincidental we're discussing it because we were talking about Shakespeare and who it could be. We've spoken about that as well.
You mean the Manly Palmer Hall secret teachings of all
These
ages?
sorts of things, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
they have to overlay that, yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I can't even, I won't even touch that one. It's too difficult. But Bruno's an important one in there too somehow. I know when he showed up in London, that's when the first Shakespeare plays were written, and then when he was first locked up by the Inquisition, that's when they were first published and performed.
But he was like the Marquis de Sade. It was into some kinky stuff, as I remember.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
It hurt so good.
De Sade's a good writer. I have Justine, and I haven't read the whole thing, but it's an interesting read. You're right about it being kinky, though. He expressed
You got
himself
to
pretty
realize
well.
back then the way it all worked.
But when in Rome.
The names arose, and Umberto Eco, he is an incredible writer.
I read that.
Captured that period that you're discussing accurately in terms of superstition and the way they did things. And you know what? Now I'm talking about information is not what we think it is. It's not about truth. Information is now being used like a weapon on the internet as World War III. It's we're so overwhelmed, I don't even know or have a clue what it all means yet. I can tell you that information is not getting me closer to any truth.
And that makes me all the more suspicious of these digitalized Vatican archives coming forth because we don't know what they're leaving out. We just have to take
Well,
their
I
word.
do. That's the problem. I do run algorithms on it, and it's creepy. And worse, when you start to realize the geoengineering that's going on, they're attacking us in our foods, they're attacking us in our water and in our air we breathe. It's like we've been invaded by something. And if you were an alien, where would you hide in plain sight where nobody'd notice you? Inside each of us, in terms of a gene, that non-human aspect that came from the filament, whatever. And so actually, as a metaphor, the war that's going on right now for Earth is actually inside each of us as part of the collective unconscious. And we have to, if we're going to apply alchemy and magic, which is the art of changing consciousness at will, that's where it all begins, with imagination. Imagination is reality. And I have this picture. It's a great picture. I have 3 glasses half full of a yellow liquid, and one is half full, one glass is half empty, and the other is full of piss. And so we have choices in the way we can look at things that create our internal landscape, and that part is where you have to start taking responsibility in the thoughts you choose to entertain.
Hey, Rick, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're going to take a quick break. Rick will be back in just a few minutes. Folks, don't go anywhere.
You're back live.
Welcome back to Researchers Radio Live. Happy holidays for those who celebrate. We do have a full panel here. Our good friend, Mr. AmadPainter, Mark Eddy. Programs here, Studio A, Monday nights, 10 p.m. Tim C is with us. Dr. Rick Miller is with us. And I cannot forget our good friend Patrik Anglish, who is, I'm privileged to have him join us. Usually I'm in discussions in the chat room with him, where I recommend everyone go. Patrik, it's my pleasure to have you here. You were sitting over there so patiently, too. I can see you over there in that little box. And
the computer's across the room, and I'm lying on the bed.
Unfortunately, I can't be in the chat room. I'd like to see if anyone had any questions for you. I was having some problems with the signal, so I dropped my internet so it wouldn't cause any problems with Skype. I was a little too nervous.
The only question that was in the chat room is I'm not really sure because it's about something that Dr. Miller was saying earlier. It says, what about a fungus that has a crystalline structure, also communicates non-locally, like a disturbed neural network? Ask
Oh,
Miller.
yeah, they're talking about bio-APIs. That's in the chemtrails they're using now, the geoengineering. They have a new life form. There's plenty of sites on it, and now the research is coming out. They created a bacteria that may have crossed with a bacteria in the xenosphere, that which originally set up a vector called Morgellons. And what this bacteria does, it's real small bacteria that's like a nanobot that is creating a polymer, and they impregnate that polymer with barium oxide and a couple of other things which attract water, and they have a structure now that's holding water in the air that they can deliver anywhere they want to. The thing is, that bacteria, which is kind of like, I'm not even going to speculate on it at this point, it's creepy, and maybe non-terrestrial origin. And so who knows what it is? And if I don't know, and I'm military, we're really concerned. And it's in our bodies. Everybody's infected. It's in everybody. Some of it vectors out as Morgellons. Others, it doesn't show anything. But you can find it in your spit. It's the chemtrails. Who's paying for that, by the way?
Really?
I watched, well, it's you figure $250,000 an hour for a jet. That's approximately what it runs to fuel it. And then the propellant that it's dropping, and the fact that it's going across the horizon, and let's see, 2 days ago I counted 49 of them. That's like a lot of money. and it's being spent right down here in Southern Oregon. I'll bet you've got it up where you guys are. And what's going on? Who's doing that and what for? Originally in the 50s, it was seeding clouds. What they were doing was trying to control fog at San Francisco Airport. Okay, that's where it all started. But then it moved up to Gore in terms of reflecting light back because of global warming. We have now absolutely shown that the planet is not globally warming, that it's a different thing happening altogether. It has to do with the sun and the way the sun's heliosphere. It's global warming is on Mars right now, okay? So it's not about, particulates and the ozone layer and all that kind of crappy stuff. So why would they be reflecting light back to the sun? Well, metaphor is that I just follow the little logic dots out here, is that if you wanted to slow down man's evolution, you would cut him away from the light, his father. And that's, a metaphor to what's going on and why my message is so important regarding activating your purpose and why you're here in the first place.
Yeah,
I spent Easter with my family, and really, I watched the grandchildren and all the little ones. My grandchildren in their 20s, she brought her boyfriend down. Good God, she turned 21. And so that's my granddaughter. That's how old I am, grown. And really, it goes back to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Teach your children well. They're going to learn how to do it by watching what you do. And if you do nothing, guess what? The problem that's happening is that the family infrastructure has been fragmented. The schools are equipped to teach the kids those values, and we now have a generation of lost souls having no idea what to do next.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, I've said this so many times, and I'm glad you just said it, because when people ask what's the problem with their life, and I speak about people I know who work 3 jobs, husband and wife, and the children are in school and daycare till 7 o'clock at night, and they feel their kids are a little uncontrollable and they don't know where things are going. And when you try to tell them, why are you working all these jobs? Why did you feel the need to spend beyond your limit and get a house that's way out of your price range, and you work so much you can't appreciate anything you have?
Yeah.
They don't want to hear any of that, though. They don't, that's, why does he have to be that? It's, how do you not realize that?
Money is a theatrical prop. It's not real. What's real is your labor. That's real. That's why there are new movements right now in North Carolina. A group of my buddies there are doing permaculture in organizations, and they have permacredits.com. That's an interesting website where it's like community-supported agriculture, where the community supports the farm and the farm supports the community. There is a exchange going on of par value, food. Watch what happens in California this summer when there's no irrigation and for drinking water, and there's crop failures. And what happens to the cost of your food coming from Mexico?
Well,
the Teamsters and the Arabs got their picture in that thing. And what you need to do is set up an infrastructure that is basically more community-minded, neighborhood-oriented. Have local gardens.
They just announced
community garden. Yeah.
Mexico's lime crop. The prices of limes are up 400% and are only going to continue to rise. And that's their native crop. So whatever they're doing, but they're smart. That would be very clever of Mexico to raise their prices, if knowing California's crops are going to fail.
Well, the thing is that the problem with the money currency thing and the so-called Illuminati, it's a bunch of Jesuits in Rome wanting $12 an hour for labor. And China is still at $2 an hour. And that's why everything you own is from China. And so, that's a gross national product. That's what happened right there in front of you just overnight. And people don't realize that it's not about gross national product. It's your wealth lies in your children and their diversity. That's what's wrong with Common Core. I have autistic children here in our town that they have this thing called Spark, where all the autistic children do bedding plans. How is it that these autistic damaged children can do bedding plans better than master gardeners? See, we're losing the focus of what is really important. It's not about things. It's not about possessions and access. It's about your family and your children. And that's where everybody starts to look for their joy. Once that's what we were talking about in a previous radio. I was talking about, finding your center. You start with your passion. Turns out this radio thing is like AmadPainter that's a painter. He's not really doing what he really wants to do, and why is that?
Me? I am doing what I want.
Yeah, well, show me.
He paints during the day, and in the evening at night.
Yeah, I paint houses. I'm not interested in actually painting.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
But yeah, I understand your concept for sure.
Well, I'm AmadPainter. I'm talking about we'll get you a special hat.
Get one like Mark's?
Yeah, more like, Johnny
I like that
Depp,
picture
but his
Mark's got
new
there.
movie Inception, that's what we're going to talk about. Just came out. And the movie I'm looking forward to is Lucy. Gee, have you seen the trailer on Lucy?
No.
Oh, man! I am the sci-fi guy. Trust me when I tell you that. I wrote early X-Files.
I believe it's
listen, Lucy is over the edge. And you know who's doing it, don't you? Is that Bow girl. What's her name? Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett?
Yes, Scarlett
I
Johansson.
believe you can watch
Yeah.
it up on watch32.com.
At the very end of the trailer, it shows her stopping time with her mind and shifting it back and forth to the moment she wants to go do something. That's
I think
in the
John
trailer.
Morton was talking about her the other day. Some host was.
Yeah. So there it is, guys. The new imagination is all over the place, and with it's going to come a brave new world. And if we don't get off our dust, I'm going to have to stick around until you get your shit together, and I don't want to do that. I want to move on now.
What's your opinion? What's your opinion? And definitely, it's an opinion. Do you think that there will be a collective understanding? Because it really is going to take, a different way to look at everything. It's really what it's going.
Oh, you mean a paradigm shift?
Yeah. I mean,
this century.
it'd be not even so. And I don't want to say extreme, but that's a lot to ask for when I'm looking at the challenge.
You mean
The revolution we need is the
quantum
revolution
universe
of the mind.
holographic?
I'm praying for a change in the universal mind. It's
Well, don't pray. Listen, the way I was taught in terms of masonry and all of that is that we are no longer at war in the physical world, that if you wish to change this world, you change yourself and the world changes with you. That's how it works. One step at a time, one person at a time. And it's going to take all of us to get it done.
Now, I agree with you 100%, but there's a lot of people that, first of all, feel that's not the purpose of any Masonic.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Here's the deal
Right.
on that. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you do your part. Don't worry about theirs. God's will is you're only in 4th grade, and who knows what you can see and what you can't see as to whether or not they're doing something important or not. Don't make judgment on another.
That's true.
And so what you do is just worry about yourself. When you do that, your little kids are going to watch you, and that's where they learn how to do it.
We all just pieces parts.
What's that?
We're all just pieces parts.
That's correct. We're part of what's called the collective unconscious or the numinous, the length, girth, and width of man. And so at one level, in the hologram, we're all the same person. That's where ego is what is a survival tool that separates and makes me distinct from you. And it's a lonely place.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's a double-edged sword. You know, and as you become more aware emotionally and intellectually, the ego's relationship to things becomes, you don't get rid of it, but it's in the perspective of everything. It's the little point down there in the corner.
Oh, we couldn't survive as a singular creature without ego.
There is some suggestion that the geoengineering is to make us into a hive mind with a bio API. That's a computer interface.
That's what we don't need.
It's a polymer that's created by a bacteria that's a nanite creating this polymer.
Is this any association with this? What is the? We were just discussing it. Were the growths of Magellan?
Morgellons.
Yeah,
Morgellons.
Is any similarity with that?
All of us are infected with this bacteria now. It has a name. They've actually created it in a laboratory, and then it mutated. Morgellons, most likely, is a nematode from the Challenger experiments that interfaced with a xenosphere bacteria. And there is a movie on the internet called Monsters, where they show that in metaphor, how that works, where they bring a life form in from Neptune or some weird place, and it blows up in the atmosphere and falls down in Mexico, and they have these big high walls to keep the monsters enclosed. And it's a couple that are trying to get out of that place. It's called Monsters. And it will show you the concept of what happens when you interface two life forms that were never meant to interface. Now, that would be a xenosphere bacteria with a nematode from Earth, creating a hybrid nematode that would be experienced as Morgellons. Once you understand what it is, from that point of view, it's easy to eradicate. You can kill this small bacteria in geoengineering with electrostatic fields. You can hit yourself with a taser or put your hand on a Van de Graaff generator and have your hair stand out on end. That will sterilize your body. The bad news is the first food you eat, the first breath of air you take, or the first drink of water, you're again infected again.
I have a taser.
All over the internet, I can send you the links on it. And it's now there's research identifying it. What's its purpose? Well, we'll talk about the Purkinje nerve system in the brain and the contingent negative variation, or your willpower. That's the jump potential between neurons that gives you the signal of fire or no fire and a signal going from one dendrite to the other. And that's where I think they're manufacturing it. In the 70s, when I was working in anesthesiology, that's where we were trying to go. Delgado had done a chip implant with monkeys in the lab next to mine before he went to Yale. And what we needed was a way to interface that with an electromagnetic signal. And that's what I think this polymer that the bacteria manufactures. And it just makes it to the point where you'll notice how the skies are no longer clear at all.
I noticed that, and I question it often. Because I know
well, guess
this
what?
guy's not
it's not
as
military.
Cool as it used to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
guess what? It's not military. So if it's not military, who's doing it? And my vector now shows it's out of the United Nations with 5 transnational corporations. Guess who owns them? Russia.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
it would
Rick,
suggest. Well, go figure. There it is. That's what I know. And I don't know.
Rick, is this Delgado figure the same person associated with the book, The Biology of Aggression?
Yes. Yes.
Just curious.
Imagine that. We were doing we did the acupuncture studies there too under Nixon. We did a bunch of stuff. I did the synthetic telepathy. Moore was studying ketamine, telepathine, and BZ studies. And that's where the Marcia Moore and the Wayne Aho thing with the UFOs up in Arlington gets all drama. I was in the middle of all of that. And I was Spook Central, basically.
I know a few months ago, NASA had released that they had found a lot of microorganisms living, a good chunk of miles in our atmosphere.
Well, and
Do you
down
think-
in molten core and in deep crevices, there you
Yeah.
go. It's that called the abyss with Angel. There's who knows what all is possible. What I do know is that imagination is reality. The physics part is horseshit. It's the imagination. Once you have it there, it's real. And that part has to do with inner landscape and your relationship to self. And so the war on takeover of Earth, probably for gold, for a Dyson sphere, who knows, Sitchin, probably is about the personal struggle you're currently enjoying. You have choices. And the problem is you have been distracted on what is and is not important. Has nothing to do with consumerism. That's
Mark-
what I have to say tonight. Pretty much wake up.
Mark, are you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mark, I know you wanted to get a question in. I'm sorry about that.
This might be a little bit off subject, but it's going back to the last hour. Rick, you mentioned Umberto Eco.
Yes.
Yeah, what did you think of the name of the rose and the pendulum?
Henry was perfect, man. He was exactly the Jesuit. That was the way it was during Umberto Eco's period when he wrote in the Inquisitions. It was just like the way Umberto Eco portrayed it. Foucault's pendulum suggested there were time travelers.
Oh, is that what that
That's
book's
the
about?
math.
Okay.
Huh?
I didn't realize that the Foucault's pendulum was about time traveling.
No, it wasn't. It was about a bunch of weird magicians at war.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Foucault's pendulum and the Comte Saint-Germain and the dragon bloods of Europe and that fourth gene in the blood types that is non-human, that has a lineage, O negative.
Well, okay.
Uh-oh.
That's not.
That's
that
in
sounds
there.
interesting.
Wait a minute, I got O negative. What'd I do?
That means
So do I.
you're probably, David Icke would probably get a cross out and try to exercise you just right there. Look at you. You look like a lizard, don't you? I'm just kidding.
Rick, when you first came on the show earlier, something I wanted to return to also. You had mentioned something. Did you say that you had your eyes or hands on some original Saint Germain texts?
Yes, I took pictures of them, and it's on Immortality. Yes,
Wow.
it was in the Warburg. Yes, I have pictures of that stuff. You want to play?
Wow,
Yes,
that's
that's what
incredible.
I used to do. I'd go in there, like the Pikatrix, and I'm like that guy.
It's just a matter of time
Totally
before I
like
get onto
Rick.
that topic. Yeah,
Am I name dropping? Whoops. I am the real deal, and a lot of European lodges use my ex-wife and my holistic Kabbalah as forms of pathworking. We wrote those over 20 years ago. They're on the internet anywhere. The Malkuth. I even we wrote something on Dot, the missing Sephiroth, which means, nobody's ever taken you that far before, have they? And see, a teacher can only take you as far as that teacher themselves have been. And I can talk to you about Mars and the amount of water on it. I have a personal relationship on it.
Okay, let's hear about it.
yeah. I would like to hear about Mars. Actually,
You
I
would?
sure would. Yeah, I sure would.
All right. Then I'm going to go to bed because I'm an old man.
Okay, that's a deal.
In 1970, I saw 3 top secret documents. We're going to go all the way down into curiosity and all of that. I saw 3 top secret documents in 1970. In 1964, they used a technology that was developed by this high school kid out of Seattle, Washington, on the Mariner 1 to actually measure the amount of water on Mars. Basically, when I was in high school, I did 2 science fair projects. The first was a new meson field theory in my junior year, which was based on Yukawa's work, where I proposed the existence of a meson as called a muon. And basically, the muons would create a tachyon factory. And then in my senior year, 1961, I built a linear accelerator and a hydrogen bubble chamber that actually demonstrated Cherenkov radiation. I was the first American to do it as a high school kid, and the 2 Russians had gotten a Nobel Prize the year before in that area of Cherenkov. And what you do is you create a muon generator that has a tachyon factory in it, beams tachyons down, and then you measure the index of refraction, and it tells you how much water is. Now, and so that's when I discovered who I was as a special, rare kid that the military had been orchestrating since I was a junior in high school. That's when I first realized that. I said, oh, because that was me, reading about me. In 1967, 1 year before the landing on the moon in 1967, yeah, they tried to, was it 1964, 1967, they detonated a nuclear warhead on the south pole of Mars in their first attempt to create and terraform Mars for oxygen. It didn't work, and because there's no atmosphere, and so they just had a big hole in the south pole. And then in 1968, 1 year before the moon in 69, they sent a joint manned expedition to Mars that was with the Soviet Union. And it was then that I realized that the Cold War and everything I was doing was a false flag. That most of my science that I was studying for the military came out of Yugoslavia. And while the Bulgarians were running around, Milan Rezel and Archaelology and some of the others, Simon Karelian, Victor Gorsica, there was a bunch of them, we found most of their, what I did was duplicate it for the military and discarded with horse shit that was bullshit, false flags. And then when I would discover something that was real, then that would be where it would go top secret and go underground in research. And I had SRI, Stanford Research Institute, I had Livermore, Argonne, I had China Lake, I had the Boeing Scientific Research Labs in South Park, the Space Center in Kent, and Douglas United Nuclear, Battelle Northwest. There was a group think tank which I set up as Oak. And now it's Oak Publishing. That started in 1974, the Organization for the Advancement of Knowledge. And it was a think tank like the one I was part of when I was at Princeton under Dr. I studied under a bunch of people. They had a big think tank at Princeton, and I was a young kid that they had on it that they used. And so when I came out and started working for the Boeing company, that's where I got exposed to this. Now, today, with Curiosity, that's 45 years ago. So, of course, Mars is colonized. How could it not be? Now, it had water. And that we knew that in 64. And so what happened next, I don't know what happened to the 68 expedition. I don't know whether it survived or not. I have no knowledge of that. Most of my work was in paranormal. That's where I worked in extrasensory perception, how to think with the gut and the enteric nervous system, and, things like psychology and working with metaphor and my book. I even had a technique using toys where in martial arts you could experience a blow in slow motion like Tai Chi as an altered state of consciousness and become a super soldier. Now, that was techniques that I was developing in the 70s. Now, when Curiosity landed on Mars, what it showed was that I have a picture of Earth, a ball, and I have a picture of the moon, and then I put a volumetric ball in between of how much water is on Earth. And then I bring a ball of water in on Mars, and it's more. Mars is a much smaller planet. It's in a structured water form at 100 below Fahrenheit, remains as a slushy ice. And so that's Boyle's law. And so the pressure is so thin on Mars, that's why they couldn't terraform it. If you were to stand on Mars, your feet were at 70 degrees, the air is so thin that by the time you're at your head, it would be at a -5 degrees. That's how thin the air is. Boyle's law again. In terms of there's nothing there. And there are all kinds of things. There's more water on Mars than there is Earth, and most of it's in liquid form. It's a structured liquid form, similar to what Pollock and others are writing about. Jerry Pollock at the UW that wrote that Fourth Phase of Water is the person who hired me to work in anesthesiology. I didn't work for him. I worked under him as lead. He was my lead. I was down the hall with higher security clearances. That's where Delgado and Moore and some others, Ray Fink, that we were doing heavy stuff. Dick Chapman, we were doing acupuncture studies for Nixon, and we brought in, I was doing, my external job in anesthesiology was to create the first aortic catheter. That measures cardiac output. It had a 10 megahertz crystal in the front that did blood Doppler, and then it had 8 28 megahertz crystals to do pulse echo. So the cross-sectional aortic wall times the blood velocity was the single most, and that was my project to the public while I was doing all the paranormal stuff underneath. And I built the first one. I grew the crystals, cut them under a microscope, soldered them under a microscope. Can you imagine a 2-millimeter tip? It goes in through the femoral artery at the knee, and you snake it up into the aortic arch when we do general. And that is the single most important measurement in men. When we take your life supports down near zero and then do terrible things to your body, your cardiac output is the bottom line. That's what they measure.
I'm just
Mars.
shocked you were figuring out water on Mars at a young age by measuring refraction.
Well, that's how you do that. That was what I had done. Cherenkov radiation is the radiation pattern given off when the speed of light becomes slower in a medium. And that's what your index of refraction is. And so you hit it with a high energy particle, and as it's slowing down, it gives off what's now called Bremsstrahlung radiation. But back then it was Cherenkov radiation. Cherenkov was the Russian that discovered it. And the Russians were kind of superstitious, but I was working with Japanese at the time I was in high school, with meson field theory. I wrote, it was mathematical mostly, and then I did the linear accelerator. You don't think old man DuPont went at me. That's why I was lead physicist at the Pentagon for 6 of 11 years, for Navy. I was Navy Intel. I was a GS-18. I had a top secret clearance with vault permits. I could go into certain vaults without a need to know, and had, like I was a reader, 3 days of the condor kind of guy. Had no idea what I was going to run into. Just there it is. And what the heck? What's this mean?
So
Mostly it's bullshit.
So it was a kid in a candy store, wasn't it?
What's that? I know,
You acted
you're
like
all
a kid in a candy store, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, this Hershey. What do you want to know? What do you want to know?
Well, we got someone in the chat room.
Yeah.
It's in regards to remote viewing. Sactinol.
Yeah, that's Persinger and not Persinger. That's Targ and Puthoff. Remote viewing. There's actually.
Yeah, just help me clear this up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you help me clear this up a little bit. Help me understand.
Yeah. There's some technical papers that are written by Alex Kavarinen and Matti Pitkinen. They're exceptional. Physicists out of Finland. Alex was the one that was doing structured waters before Jerry Pollock, and Pollock was mostly the orchestrator, and then the guy that was doing the math and things like that was Alex Cavarini. Well, he and Matty Pitkin have written in a very exclusive journal called Emergent Mind Bulletin. You can find it on the internet. The editor is Leon Sidorov. She's Russian, and Alex and Matty have written about it. So has Iona, my wife, and I have also written about remote viewing. Remote viewing is dangerous. It is not astral projection. Astral projection starts from the inside and is projected outward, and that's why you have the thread, the continuity of relationship of point of source of origin. And it's an extremely important metaphor in the early stages because in quantum mechanics, there's a theorem that says that the viewer changes the subject it's viewing. And if that's true, and it is, then PK phenomena, which is outside the body, is a part of remote viewing. And that means you're allowing something to watch you. And you pick up stuff while you're allowing it to watch. Now, that's different than Shirley MacLaine and astral projection. And it was Robert Monroe that started that with John Lilly and some others out of Berkeley. Before Carrington, others have written in this field. The Targ and Puthoff were in the 80s. I was SRI in the 70s. I worked with, my teacher was Andrea Puharich, and people like Bill Tiller worked under me. I was MRU. But Puharich was older, and like Dr. Stanley Krippner, they both mentored me. I had good teachers so that I could do the real work correctly. And when I came to a fork in the road, to instinctively know why to go to the right rather than the left. I even wrote about that as the first protocol for Navy SEALs, thinking with your gut. That's outside space-time. That means you make decision-making from your gut, and you're going to be doing true will. That's a good place to start. Intuition, called spirit, like you find in a wolf. And so they're closer to the constructs of that center that you're seeking in yourself. And once you have that with the higher brain functions, now you have some possibilities of actually performing magic, pathworking. And so you take charge of your own personal evolution. And that's the way it works. And I'm going to show you by example. Just watch what I do, and you'll get it real quick. And that's once... So what was I going to try to say? Oh, yeah, remote viewing. I would be extremely cautious with remote viewing, especially the way the military does it with enhancements, with drugs, things like that. They try to jack you up a little bit so the experience has got more edge to it. And once that happens, I mean, who knows what's happening to your soul? I'm going to say I don't do remote viewing, and Alex Cavarini and Matty Pitkin have both written on the dangers of it. So there it is, and they were in the 80s. It's something new. Basically, in the 70s, there was still an honesty in research. It was about blue sky, and we had no idea where it was going to go, and it was good because it was the unknown. And what happened is there was a change in the 80s where everything that was researched had to have application. It had no construct about advancing on man. It became consumerism, man, and the matrix. So many BTUs in, so many BTUs out. And it's creepy.
So it was
very true.
A big change in the 80s, you feel?
Yeah, there was a change in the sciences. It's not honesty.
Yeah,
There's no honesty
see that
in it.
too.
And like information is not what you think information is anymore. It's a double-edged sword, lying by omission. There's all kinds of ways you can talk about it, but it's more like information has now become a weapon. You have no idea what happened to Flight 370. And we'll probably never know what happened to 9/11. And yet, everybody knows it didn't happen the way it said. With the black boxes and being able to control aircraft from space. So there's, that's Boeing. They came out and said they have that. So who's the vector show? Rothschild. And when you say that he represents possibly the least human aspect of mankind, I would say we've been invaded.
You would actually say that?
I just did.
Yeah, you
and
did.
so there's no question. I mean, there's no question, and that's me as a physicist. Now, that battle, like I said, and we're speaking in metaphor now, like I do,
of course,
okay, is carrying inside you right now. And that's the personal responsibility part of getting your behind together and start walking the talk. Show me. Show your daughter. Show your granddaughter. They're both watching.
I wish we could
Like
put that message out a lot
by
more.
example.
That's the way. You got to not worry about the other person. Worry about yourself.
Well, there's that big thing about service to others and everything. So it occurred to me, well, service to others through self-awareness.
Yeah, but that's Siva, and I agree on Siva. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. However, he also concludes with love is the law, love under will.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you're open and kind, Siva, devotion, whatever. That's part of the grace or nam that you aspire toward. However, if it takes you away from your true will and purpose, that's the most important love there is. That's why they call it eros, philo, agape, and telema, or thelema. So there it is. And it's pretty straightforward. And everybody's got the rules. You already know what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm getting bored. I'm waiting for you to get your shit together so I can get out of here.
I don't want to have to come back and do this all over again.
Well, especially with the new Earth and where it's going to go. You want to come back to Earth in 2050 when it's an extinction event?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it can either be crowded as
Well,
hell.
I have algorithms, mathematical algorithms, military ones. We do not use like Cliff Eyes. That's Goetzel. We use Onzel. We use a form of Clifford. And our algorithm suggests that Fukushima is an extinction event.
Well,
Wow.
I have just heard this recently. I haven't heard anyone speak on it, and it's.
Well, I have. I did it with Gary Cassidy.
This is like something new I'm hearing, and I have a feeling it's going to be becoming a lot more frequent than I hear this.
Well, there's other things to consider yourself. You know, there are life forms now in Chernobyl and now in Fukushima that are just thriving in that high-end gamma ray.
Yeah, and likewise, I just read an article about Chernobyl as well, about the obvious mutations and disaster.
Well, they have life is coming back. I remember when Mount St. Helens went off and it decimated everything. I was right in the middle of it. I had to drive from the beaches back to Seattle. I was in it. I've seen it. I've done it. I was there. And yet it recovered and has recovered life form-wise. However, when you have cesium-137, and I mean, they're finding plutonium from Fukushima in Arizona.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Well,
you know something that I've noticed about these.
There are foods that you can eat that will bioremediate heavy metals and garbage out of you. The problem I'm concerned about is children. I'm going to suggest that 40% of the prefect of Tokyo, children all now have thyroid problems, and that Japan will probably no longer exist as a continent sometime in your lifetime. That's a fact. It's on a precipice. There is nothing below it. And it's amazing that it's still there. Japan recently bought 2 very large islands from Russia up in the Kamchatka Sea. Fukushima most likely occurred not because of the Daiichi-like format of spent plutonium rods, which is a crock. What happened was there was weapons-grade plutonium there. Who knows why? Probably Japan's economy was in the toilet, and they were either negotiating with Iran or trying to saber-rattle with China, or both. Who knows? What I do know is that when I hear about tuna coming out of San Francisco that glows in the dark, and they try to blame it on Fukushima, more likely the problem is that Hanford has leaked into the Columbia River and it's contaminated the entire West Coast. It gets worse. All of the Daiichi-like GE plants are leaking right now. Every single one of them. There are RADCON level alerts in North Carolina and Texas every day, including Nevada just the last couple of days. And so, with that said, I think that the first level of responsibility is to turn the switch off just right now. And every single person that hears this writes that letter, because it's going to take every single person to get that craziness done. Matt Stein has written a paper called 400 Chernobyls. What does that bring to mind? And most of them are on fault lines. Give me a break.
I know.
It's the dumbest way to boil water that I know of. And the
It's
second
nuts.
thing, is
The
worse,
whole thing is nuts.
is fracking.
It's
Them
careless.
two things there are stupid.
Well, the one thing I thought was pretty peculiar about the article with Chernobyl was the mention that the closer the trees are to, the main plant, the less that they have broken down. They're not degrading the way they should. They're still very well intact, considering they should have broken down a long time ago.
Well, there's those two Russian children, too, that seem to be thriving on this. I don't know if that's a crock or not, but I remember reading about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I've seen a lot of children that were a complete disaster after
Yeah,
it.
that too.
Well, you know
that's
this.
that's the problem, is that the children, their thyroid, they're unequipped to cope against radiation of that level. As adults, at least we have a little bit of a chance. But when you're under 4 years old, it's really, really hard. Right now, just in America, just for the above-ground testing in Utah in 1953 got into the Idaho milk, and the victor now is 1 in 4 people that were born between 1950 and 1970 have a thyroid problem of some kind. 1 in 4. And if you go to any pharmacy, that is the current, it's not oxycodone. It's thyroid medicine. And worse, it's in Japan, the reports I'm coming out right now, immediately, that 40% of the children have thyroid problems. I think everybody over there is dead.
And especially, I know one of the first things to go that's not obvious right off the bat is reproductive organs, especially on the young ones.
Well, isn't it the potassium pills that are sent out to these areas? That's particularly for the thyroid gland, because that's where the radiation first enters the body.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, did you have a question you want to get in? I know we're running towards the end of the program here.
Yeah, Rick, how much longer before we start seeing major health problems with fracking, or has it already started?
It's probably already started. I'm not as knowledgeable on the fracking part right now as you are, Mark. By the way, I really appreciate you queuing me up on all of that. It helps me, like a lead scout kind of thing, bringing me more current in that area. I'm not. Utah or Nevada and the Bundy Ranch and all of that crap that was going on, I'm not sure. I think it's mostly China wanted to set up there, and they used our government as a tool to start a war. And really, it was a false flag again to test the levels of civil disobedience and things like that. They actually shot some cattle, and there is the possibility that the head of BLM and some guy that was part of that SWAT team thing, they may try them for cruelty to animals. Now, I don't know how that's all going to play, but there was an event that could have gotten weird, really in a heartbeat. And that's why FEMA has already gone through, because there are going to be more and more civil disobedience in that regard.
I mean, yeah, that was the details I'm lacking, on specifics for quoting all the happenings.
Well, just like the aircraft, whatever happened to it, nobody will probably ever know, and they'll do some disinformation like, well, we're going to go over here in the Malaysian Sea now look for it. No, we didn't find anything, but we found something.
I can't even tell you how many times I woke up.
It's crazy.
To them saying
all
they've located it, or we have the debris today. We have the debris. We have a ping.
All your media, you realize that all of your media controls is controlled by one of the transnational corporations, and this is how they're taking over. And you have a responsibility to kick in and just say no. If 5% of a group that's using any system, shopping at Walmart, whatever, if 5% stopped, it would close down Walmart. It's as simple as that. Just say no. Stop eating wheat. Just don't do it. Watch what happens.
Rick, I got something I want you to think about for the next time we get on a show together.
I want Rick back immediately.
You
We need to do a little research first, but then we want him back. Can barely keep up with you.
You mentioned that there was a life form in Chernobyl, and there was a life form that they've
that black slime. It's driving. It's probably from Galactic Center.
I was just going to say, now, as you get closer to the center of the galaxy, the radiation is higher.
That's correct. So it has a different kind of a life form system.
Right. Huh. I just was wondering if you thought, well, apparently you do.
Get a grip, man. I'm a scientist. There's no way I couldn't.
Well, Rick, we're running towards the end of the show here, but I just wanted to take the time, especially on air, to thank you for joining us on the short notice. It's been a real treat talking. Trying to cover so many topics in a short time.
Where can our listeners reach you?
Yeah, where you can reach you at.
Oh, you want me to do? Okay. My books are at oak-publishing.com, and my primary website is richardallenmiller.com. ALAN. richardallenmiller.com.
And also, Patrik Anglish, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Joe, for having me.
I appreciate you calling in and sticking around for the show.
Yeah.
It was nice seeing you, or rather hearing you, than seeing just the text all the time like I normally do.
Yeah, right. You can get to tell who I really am.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you called in. I hope you get to do it again. And
me too.
And Rick, I hope you'll come back and join us sometime on the program.
You bet. Just catch me. I was just doing radio on another Skype, and I had that message from you. So I thought
I'll definitely keep in touch with you.
I like AmadPainter.
And we'll try to get you back on here pretty soon.
Cool. Thank you.
I want to promote a couple of Rick's books because I've read them.
Please do.
Self-explanatory.
Please do.
And the one, Power Tools for the 21st Century, is pretty awesome. It's kind of an exercise book in order to build your mental capacity. And I'm playing with it, so maybe I won't stumble over my words quite so much.
You do just fine, if you ask me.
Not when I try to read on air.
Hey, just practice, that's all.
That's why I keep doing it.
I'm real glad he joined us for tonight, though.
I'm surprised he stayed as long as he did. He usually takes a nap when he comes on our show at 10.
But we were jumping around so many topics.
It's hard to pin him down to any particular topic.
Yeah, he's got so much knowledge stored up there that he probably can't say it fast enough.
He has so much enthusiasm to share it.
Yeah, I hope at some point I could get to reading The Name of the Rose. I love the movie. Now I'm gonna have to get the book now.
Oh, there's a book that I would highly recommend that you guys read if you can get it, and it's called A Distant Mirror: The Calamitous 14th Century, and it's written by Barbara Tuchman, Tuchman. She wrote The Guns of August. It's about 700 pages, and it's all about the 100 Years' War and the Black Plague, and you read it and you start to realize this is just about where we are now.
Does
Did
she
you know
also?
the Reaper comes from the Black Plague?
Say that again, Thomas?
What we know
Reaper,
as the
Grim
Reaper,
Reaper.
the
Right.
Grim Reaper,
I
actually
don't know.
originated because of the Black
It
Plague.
may have. I really don't. I can't say.
Well,
I've heard that.
they mentioned that they seen them swinging the sickles like in the fields just before the Black Plague hit in certain cities.
Huh. That's odd. There were strange fogs in Ireland before the potato famine, too, you know, if you want to get real paranormal about it. But all these kids' nursery rhymes, like, you know, Ring Around the Rosie and stuff like that, Pocket Full of Posy, We All Fall Down. That's all about the Black Plague. And that song, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme by Simon and Garfunkel, that, again, is about the Black Plague because that's how you make thieves' oil. You make an oil and you combine those 4 herbs and you put it on you and you can go rob all the corpses of all their jewels and you won't get the plague. Oil is thieves' oil.
Interesting tidbits of history you don't normally hear.
No, I'll collect them.
That's often my favorite history.
Folklore has become a big part of an open canvas recently.
What or?
Folklore.
Oh, folklore. Okay, I got you, Mark. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what you're talking about, you know, fits into, you know, the bigger. It's a small piece of the bigger picture, but it all fits in there.
Yeah, we're becoming a feudal society again. It won't be long. I mean, it'll be just like the 14th century. You read that book, and then you'll say, good heavens, just look around you and see what we're getting at. It's scary.
We got a couple experts on tomorrow night, right, Mark?
Who do you have on tomorrow? I'm sorry. I meant to ask that anyway, Painter. Who do you guys have on tomorrow night?
It's Dr. Yanya Lalich, and she's a cult expert. And she'll be talking about, you know, her experience getting people out of cults, cult leader tendencies, things like that.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please join AmadPainter and Mark tomorrow night, Open Canvas Studio A, 10 p.m. Eastern.
Mark
Thank you.
It's the guess.
Thank you, everyone.